Hi, I'm Sarah Morris.
And I'm Vicki Emerson.
And you're listening to 103.5 FM.
WLSP LP, Sun Prairie, Wisconsin.
Rusev Fudria, Rusev Machka.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Schmozcast. I'm your host, Anthony Deneau, and in the studio we've got Chandler Daniels. How are we doing, Chandler?
Doing excellent.
And Andre Martinez.
What's going on?
Holy cow. All right. We're also going to bring Zach in via the 103.5 FM WLSP LP Sun Prairie, Wisconsin hotline. Zach, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for being with us on this wonderful Saturday morning.
No problem.
So Tuesday night we were live on Smackdown. That's how far and how fast our show has come. We're just live on TV because that's the leaps and bounds that we make in just over a year and a half. So pretty neat stuff. I'm sure most of our listeners saw us there.
Oh, they had to have.
They must have.
We got a lot of on-screen time there.
We certainly did. So yeah, all four of us were there. We were live right off the rail from the entrance ramp. Really cool to be there. It was a go-home episode of Smackdown. We're going to talk about our experience. We're going to talk about it, the go-home episode itself, leading up to Fastlane. We're going to talk about why sometimes it's embarrassing to be a professional wrestling fan, and well, some of the people we sat around helped us prove exactly that. So first of all, let's go around and just kind of talk about the overall experience. Chandler, what was your main takeaway from SmackDown? And I imagine you had fun. You had a smile plastered on your face ear to ear.
Oh man, I had an absolute blast. All in all, I felt it was a pretty decent episode of SmackDown. It was not what I expected. I didn't even realize that it was the go home episode. I thought Fastlane was next weekend, not this coming weekend, or tomorrow actually. But as far as it being a go home episode of SmackDown, I don't know. It was kind of lacking in some areas. I felt there was no real build up besides a video package for the tag division. Usos and New Day, one of the greatest rivalries that has been going on for the past year or so, is going to be showcased at this pay-per-view, and neither one of them made an appearance on the actual episode of SmackDown itself, which I thought was kind of weird. But all in all, it was a decent enough episode, I thought.
Andre, what did you think?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. The show, I guess I didn't know it was a go home show either, but I guess for a go home show, I don't know if it was the best, but being live, I think definitely amplified that. I've gone to a lot of house shows, but I have not gone to a televised show since Raw in 1998. So it's been 20 years, literally, that I've been to a televised show. And on top of that, all the house shows I went to were either dual branded or Raw branded. So it was kind of cool to do a SmackDown show. And I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself. I got to see everyone I wanted to see, and then some, because with the Mixed Match Challenge, I got to see one of my favorites from Raw, being Braun Strowman, on top of Alexa Bliss, seeing her as well, and then Alexa Bliss on top of Braun Strowman. But we can get to that at another point. Literally. But I had a lot of fun. I may not have enjoyed it as much if I had just watched it on TV, but just being there and the atmosphere, and I knocked off a couple bucket list things as a wrestling fan that I've always wanted to do and be a part of. So it was fun.
Zach, are you kind of in line with what the boys think, that had you watched it on TV, it maybe would have been a mediocre episode of SmackDown, but being there, especially when you add in some of the other things such as the 205 Live, the 2 dark matches that we got to see, we'll talk about those in a minute, as well as the mixed match challenge. Where do you sit on this one?
Yeah, it was definitely a fun episode. It was interesting to see a lot of the people there live. As far as the go-home show, not maybe the strongest, but yeah, it's always different seeing it live as compared to on TV with the breaks and everything worked in. But it was fun. It was great. The seats were amazing, and it's a fun experience.
So let's talk about the opening match. So we had the New Day come out. This is the pre-show dark match, I guess. And it's interesting that, okay, this was a go-home episode of SmackDown leading up to Fastlane, which is probably overall one of our least favorite pay-per-views, just because those in between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania pay-per-views can sometimes be lacking in some ways. Chandler, you can attest to that, as last year the Goldberg Kevin Owens incident.
Yeah, but this year, with it being SmackDown, I feel like there's a lot more potential for it to be at least more exciting than last year. Because, yes, I was at Fastlane last year and witnessed Kevin Owens lose the Universal title to Goldberg with 2 moves, and instantly thereafter bought a Kevin Owens Show t-shirt to show exactly where my allegiances lie. It's not with Goldberg, if you didn't pick up on it.
That's right. Okay, so one of the biggest matches is going to be the tag team champions Usos versus the New Day. We didn't really get anything from that rivalry. Okay, are you guys disappointed by that, or because this rivalry is already kind of set in stone as one of the best they have in WWE? Andre, were you okay with? Did it make sense to not have this as like a focal point of SmackDown?
Yes and no. It doesn't, from a fan standpoint, because I want to see as much as these two teams as possible feuding. But from their standpoint, I get the feeling that this is the end for now of this feud. I think they're going to go either a triple threat with the Bludgeon Brothers or just one of those against the Bludgeon Brothers. But I think they're kind of moving away from just New Day versus Usos. So I think that not giving them TV, and I could be wrong. I'm just trying to, as a fan, see what it is they're doing with not having 2 of the most over acts on TV. And the only way I can think about that is they want to downplay it for some reason because they want the folks for WrestleMania to be something else. But hopefully they get a match this year at least and not get thrown into under the Giant Memorial Battle Royal match at WrestleMania.
You sound like me because I can never get it right.
I usually can get it, and that's the first time I haven't been able to get it. So I blame you, Frony. That's
right. That's how it goes. Zach, so some of the classic things that we always see at a go-home pay-per-view, especially when a match has 4 or 5 or 6 people in it in the main event, is that we end in a big schmoz where it ends, everyone's just, chaos in the ring, and it's like, oh, what's going to happen on Sunday? That wasn't the case here. We actually got a Sami Zayn turn on Kevin Owens in the main event, and a pretty good main event for having 4 or 5 competitors without John Cena being there, which I thought was a bit of a surprise, but it wasn't exactly your kind of classic go-home episode, was it?
Yeah, no, it really didn't have that 6-man tag that ends in ridiculous schmaz, and you don't really have any direction going into the pay-per-view. But, yeah, rolling off the AJ Dolph match, which was, of course, great, into a surprisingly functional and entertaining 5-man match. I thought it was really great. Really great. It delivered. I think everyone looked really good in it, and that Sami Zayn twist was really exciting. I don't know where they're going to take the Sami Zayn Kevin Owens storyline going forward. So that could be interesting. I feel like it could get left by the wayside before we get to WrestleMania.
See, okay, that's an interesting thing I want to talk about because those two, along with Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon, have really been the focal point of SmackDown these last 4+ months. And now that it seems like there might be or is a breakup between Owens and Zayn, are these two going to get set by the wayside, like Zach said, or is it set up for these two to face each other at Mania? And we know what a great built-in rivalry, tag team on the Indies, traveled the world together. These guys have great history. Is this going to culminate in a WrestleMania match against each other? Or, Andre, you said there's some rumblings that those two will be put in that Andre the Giant Battle Memorial Trophy match.
Dang.
Did I get it?
Close.
Almost.
Damn it.
there's rumors that they might be put into the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which would be a darn shame if they did, because a darn shame, not Shane, darn shame if they did, because those two deserve a match, one-on-one. I mean, especially with what happened on Tuesday, and probably they're not going to be able to work together on Sunday, or they're going to try to, and someone's going to turn on the other, something like that. But they, with their, like you said, with their history, I don't know if their history is as deep as you say. I only remember them being together in NXT. Before that, I remember there was a lot of this El Generico, rest in peace, God rest his soul. But yeah, I think they deserve to have a one-on-one match at Mania. It just doesn't make sense as to why they do that. So hopefully those rumblings are just rumors.
Chandler, okay, so here's the thing about the Andre the Giant trophy, whatever. It's been on the pre-show before. It seemed like it was a big deal when they first did it 3 years ago. Since then, it seems like they don't care as much about it, and it doesn't seem as important. Now with the HBO documentary coming out around the same time as WrestleMania, do they want to pump this up and put this actually on the main card of WrestleMania? And do they do that by putting guys like Owens and Zayn, who have been a very important part of SmackDown, into it? Or is this just sort of, we don't have a place for these guys on the card, so we're going to throw them in here?
Either way, whichever it is, whether it's to try to build up the match itself, or if it's just because they don't have any other place to put them, as you just said, I agree with Andre. I would hope that they aren't in the match. It would feel all the work that they've done, like you said, the past 4 months. It would feel like it's been building up, and it has the perfect timing to culminate at WrestleMania. But for it to not, if you could put them in that match, I would be let down. I'd be disappointed by it. So I'd understand. The only way that I would somewhat understand it is from the point of view of building up the match because of the documentary and trying to build towards or build up that. But even still, I would be, like I said, let down by it.
Zach, what is the best way? First of all, do you want to see what kind of match do you want to see Zayn and Owens in at WrestleMania? And then secondly, what's the best way to make the Andre the Giant Battle Royal mean something?
I love the idea of KO and Sami Zayn getting that WrestleMania showcase at some point, but with nothing on the line, I don't know what the point is. We get a great match, but at some point they have to be fighting over a belt, and I don't know. We get spoiled with all these great matches that they put on, and do we get tired of them at some point without having stakes for them? Because it feels like creative being like, we know they're going to be great in the ring, but we don't really need to give them anything else, and I think that diminishes their importance and the impact they can have. I do like the idea of putting them in the Andre match just to like elevate the importance of that match and make it feel a little more, I don't know, impactful than just everyone on the mid-card who didn't have a spot getting out there and schmozzing around for 10 minutes and then someone who they're not actually going to push winning at the end. So if they load it with a little more, upper card talent and make it entertaining or worthwhile, I don't know, it could be good. And then I think it's the same thing with the match itself. Like, you win a cool trophy, but that doesn't mean anything. You don't get a challenge for a title. You don't have to defend your role as the champion of that match. There's nothing to it. It's just an honorary title, and it doesn't really mean anything. So maybe, they get the first shot at the champion after WrestleMania, or they get a main event shot at SummerSlam, something to give it some impact. Otherwise, it's just it's a filler match, blatantly. So I don't know. They need to freshen it up a little bit, because I don't think it's ever really meant much.
I think I can buy Sammy and Kevin in that match if a title shot is on the line for the winner of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Yeah, the Battle Royal. Darn it, I said it right, but then I didn't.
I like Zach just going with the Andre match. I think that's what I'm going to use from now on.
The Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, that match, if a title shot's on the line and it comes down to just Sammy and Kevin, I think that would work. Actually, I could see that. I'd like to see that.
Okay, what about just for the sake of making Money in the Bank the big five. And would that be a spot, Chandler, to make that the winner of the Andre match gets the champion of their choice at Money in the Bank in the main event, especially now with dual branded pay-per-views. That could change. You can have the choice of whoever, and even if they did this, that it's the winner gets the U.S. or the IC. Even that is something, especially for most of these guys who are going to be your mid carders.
It would make the Andre match actually matter, and it sucks saying that because it should matter already, but I mean, since Cesaro won it when he threw the Big Show over the top, which was the first one, I feel pretty much let down by this match every time that I've seen it. So it would be good to give it something to that extent. I wouldn't be mad either way, whether it's a world title shot or a IC or US title shot. I kind of think that IC or US would make more sense just because the Rumble you already get a main event WrestleMania match. So it would be interesting. I think I would actually prefer it to be a shot at either the US or IC.
I'm going to break kayfabe here and give you praise, Frony, because that was a really good idea. I think making that a world title of your choice at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view makes sense because then one of the champions doesn't... There's more people to put in the Money in the Bank match itself at that pay-per-view because the winner of the Andre the Giant battle...
The Andre match.
The Andre match gets the shot at Money in the Bank. I like that idea. I really do. But I also like the idea of a IC or US title on the line as well. But I like with two brands being in the ring for that Andre match, I like the choice of which champion they can choose to face.
Because as of right now, so Cesaro won the first one, and really nothing was done. It was the whole Vince McMahon coming out and telling him that he's got to get the reach for the brass ring and everything. I don't know if I could even. And then what? Big Show won the second one. And then I don't even remember who won last year. Rob Gronkowski did, right?
Yeah, totally.
Rob hindered Jinder and got the victory for Mojo Rawley.
That's right. And see, so nothing really has been done with any of those guys.
Baron Corbin won the year before Mojo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it is the fourth.
Yep.
Oh, holy cow! Wow, It's been going on that long. That's wild. But yes, please make this match matter. Do something with the stipulation that you get more than just the trophy. And maybe, that should lead into something else to get me excited about Payback or Money in the Bank going forward, especially if they do want to elevate Money in the Bank, as it is already kind of that fifth pay-per-view. But, we used to have King of the Ring, and I think that they really should, give us that June pay-per-view.
And then that's another way to, if you want to switch someone from one brand to another, you can do that by having a Raw guy win the Andre match and challenge a SmackDown guy, and then once you challenge, you're automatically on that roster that you challenged. That's a way to do a one-off switch of someone if you have someone in mind wanting to switch a show without having to do a whole superstar shakeup, or just randomly have their contract ended, so now they're signing. I've always thought it was weird how people switch brands when on the very few times they do, if it isn't a shakeup.
It is very weird. Let's get back to some of the stuff on SmackDown. It started off with an interview with Ruby Riott where she kind of insulted Charlotte Flair. I'd like to think that I got Charlotte to smile at me after giving her a hell yeah, sister.
She was smiling at me because I was bowing to her, I think.
Damn it all.
So, yeah, there's that.
All right. See, I knew you were going to have something for that. So then as the Riot Squad was walking out, probably during commercial, I yelled lather, rinse, repeat to Sarah Logan because she does have some nasty dreadlocks. And
that was all you.
Holy death stare, man. You can find that on our social media pages, right, Chandler?
Check that out. It's on our Instagram. You can find us at the Schmozcast. Funny stuff.
Then the first actual match of SmackDown was Randy Orton and Jinder Mahal. This is where we might take a little bit of break to talk about being a wrestling fan and why it's tough. So, Jinder Mahal has an interesting angle right now and character that is, if you really break it down, and Andre, I kind of want you to start off here about what Jinder Mahal is and what he's kind of getting across. And it's interesting that he is a heel because he's not necessarily, a lot of the things he says outside of his heel antics are pretty on point.
Yeah, and he's actually kind of gone away from the whole
xenophobia.
Like I'm Indian and you hate me because of that type of thing. but he's a heel that, yeah, he's done heel things, and the whole making fun of Shinsuke on the screen was a weird little diversion from his character. But a lot of what he says, as you say, a lot of what he says and has said is true about people not liking him simply because of the way he looks and where he comes from. And we experienced that, or at least I know I've heard quite a few of the people around me saying things like, go back to where you came from. I think someone said, go back to, what, Russia?
Yeah. It was the guy directly in front of us.
Yeah, so there was a lot of that.
Man.
And then you had the USA chant. And put it this way, I popped pretty hard when Jinder won, and I was very happy that he got the W there, and I was wearing my Jinder shirt and got to cheer right behind the fans that were previously telling him to go back to where he came from. So, yeah.
Okay, Zach, let's go to you about this. The Jinder angle is certainly one that's going to create some weird responses from fans. And Green Bay, not one of the most diverse cities or fan bases. Let's just put it that way. This is kind of one of those things that brings up those weird feelings about being a wrestling fan.
Yeah, it's a gross situation. It's a old school heel tactic of just using, he looks different than us, let's not like him. It was never like, on a basic human level, like an appropriate thing to do, but it was an easy way to get heat. And back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, it was much more, I guess, palatable based on whatever. But in this day and age, there's no reason for it. It's like, as embarrassing as many parts of wrestling can be, to have that be the reason you don't like someone it's dumb. It's unacceptable. It's demeaning to the product, to the fans, to the performers. Like, it really bums me out. And then given the location, I love Green Bay, but man, given a wrestling show in Green Bay, you're not going to see the most, not everyone obviously, but there were several people right around us with, the shouts of go back to Russia, where they're screaming at a Canadian citizen who's embracing his Indian heritage, performing in America. So I'm not quite sure where Russia comes into that, but it's a not a fun situation. I think it just shows lack of creativity on the company's part to come up with an actual reason to dislike this guy, and like, they can spin it any way they want. It's xenophobic, it's racist, it's gross. And then for the counter chant to that guy to be the USA chant just like really drives home maybe how not enlightened we are as a culture yet. It was a real bummer to have to sit through that still at this point. And like, I remember sitting through the bit on Smackdown several years ago live where they had Santino and Jinder trying to charm the Cobra against the great Khali, and to see that we've made very little progress since then is pretty disheartening.
Yeah, it was definitely disappointing to be a part of that and to witness that directly in front of us, like I said, just firsthand. But at the end with Jinder getting the win, I definitely was booing Jinder, not for those reasons, not for any of the reasons, not because he didn't go back to Russia or home or wherever these people might have thought he was from.
Just because you're a hinderer.
Yep. Well, if you want to call me that, that's fine. He's a heel. I boo him when I'm at it. I mean, that's what I'll do. I'll play my part at a show. But to see Andre pop for Jinder's victory and literally be the only one standing within a certain little area around us, I felt like, okay, well then that's 100% worth it, because someone that does support Jinder got to see him win, even though all of these things that were being said happened. And yeah, I just at the bottom line is I just wish that didn't exist, and a lot of it does have to do with how Jinder was booked and how things were handled with him.
So I want to ask you guys this, because it has been something that's been in wrestling almost since the inception of wrestling, that you have the foreign heel, and in some markets, like in New York, when they would bring in an Italian superstar, it worked really well. They were a babyface because of like the Italian population, or whatever it might have been. Really, like they won that guy over. That was their guy, and so it works both ways. But is this something that in 2018, should we really be done with this, or is it lazy booking because it's this thing that's always worked in all these past decades? But we're in a really really weird spot in time for the United States where it is 2018, but we seem to be traveling backwards in a lot of ways. Is that, like, what is the psychology to using this kind of character today, Andre?
I don't know exactly because I'm not in the front office.
No
of the wrestling
way.
promotion.
Are you
But
sure?
if I were to throw out a guess there, thank you, Frone. If I were to throw out a guess there, I would say because it's a cheap, easy way to get heat and to get boos and to make someone hated without. I don't want to say lazy because I don't know what goes into writing a character. But if you see a guy like Jinder and you automatically book him that way, I mean, I guess it kind of is. I would like to see a character like that, but I would like to see him booked as a babyface against heels that are. I mean, you got to be careful and you got to toe the line. But I'd like to see the babyface. I'd like to see a guy like Jinder being a babyface. Doesn't necessarily have to be Jinder, but someone that. You know what I'm trying to say? I don't know.
Yes, but here's my worry about that is when you reverse the roles, are some of the horrible fan human beings that are a good portion of wrestling fans, are they still going to cheer for, are they going to become the fans of the heel because of that? Or, I mean, certainly there's a way to book it where you can make it very obvious that this person is a horrible human being. My worry is that those wrestling fans that we're trying to avoid getting the USA chance and the go back to Russia chance to a Canadian man of Indian heritage, that they're not going to just go with what they've felt and what makes sense to them, which would be rooting for that heel.
Right, but that's where it comes into where you gotta write it the right way and book it the right way to make them, and they'll put time and energy and effort into creatively booking something to get someone cheered that normally wouldn't be cheered because they've been doing it for the past year with Roman Reigns. And even though I don't like Roman Reigns and I don't like the position he's in, the way that they're booking him and Brock Lesnar to try and get us to cheer for him, I don't think it's going to work. I really don't. But they're doing a really good job, and it's really, I say it's creative, even though people think it's lazy because they're not having Brock on TV. But I think it's a smart way. If they can work that hard to get someone to cheer for someone who's clearly not over, they can do it with someone else.
Okay, last thing on Jinder. We're going to go to Zach for this one. Zach, what would you do with Jinder Mahal? Does he need to be off TV for a few months so they can get away from at least some of the things and the reactions that he garners? Or is there a way to change this on a more immediate basis? Because honestly, I like the music. I like the presentation. I like the Singh brothers. And even when he was playing up the xenophobic angle, I liked that. But obviously, it does... what it does in places like Green Bay or in the Southeast or other places where they're booing Jinder for all the wrong reasons. And yeah, he says things in a heel way, but if you really analyze it, like you were saying, Andre, he actually should be considered a babyface in some ways. But Zach, where would you take the Jinder Mahal character?
Well, that's the tricky part too, is that if you look at it, like, I think the laziness comes in. Jinder came back after being cut. He's in amazing shape. And I think Vince is like, we got to get him on TV right now. What's the easiest way we can get him on TV? And you slap this character on him. But the problem is, it works in the short term, even if it's not, my favorite way to book it. Like, you get it. Like, it's a way to reintroduce him and put some fresh heat on him, because otherwise, we're going to spin off 3MB a year and a half later when it wasn't doing anything for him in the first place. Like, the problem with the other problem, like, on a purely product standpoint, like, there's no long-term legs on a character who you just hate because he's a little bit different from you. Like, are you really going to spin out that into, like, a couple of years where you're going to keep him around the main event picture? And then at what point do you look at the babyface who's fighting him, who really at this point has no reason to hate him other than those not terribly lovely reasons? Like, when does the babyface start looking kind of like the avatar for these fans who have less open-minded views than others? I think it's a tricky thing, and maybe that I don't know if it's taking him off air. I don't think it needs to be that way. I don't think he's in a terrible place right now, and putting him in, like, I think putting him in the U.S. title match would have been an interesting way to do it, because I think you can spin. He's got the heel heat now. You just need to take the cultural aspect away from it and find a different reason. Make him start cheating more in matches on his own instead of bringing in the Singh brothers or bringing in Kali or doing something like that. I think it's just he got pushed to the moon really quick because I think they needed something new in the main event and SmackDown, and then there was no long-term plans for him. We saw him fight Randy Orton for like 15 years there, like every match, and it was like, they were great, but it didn't hold my attention after the second match. And so I don't know if he just needs to cool off a little bit and kind of solidify as a character, as a heel, and in his own right. I don't know. It's a tricky one. I will admit that I'm not the same level fan of Jinder as maybe Andre is. So I'm also not too concerned about what they do with him because I'm not dying to see him every week. So who knows?
Chandler, you'd like to see Jinder turn face and then tag team with the Progressive Liberal. Is that correct?
Oh, you read my mind 100%. No, I think that, honestly, I think that right now he's in the best spot, being kind of mixed in the things with Randy Orton and Bobby Roode for the United States Championship. That's where I would put him, and that's where he is. If we end up getting a triple threat match at Mania, which kind of seems like that's what's going to happen, that would be cool if it's the three of them. Otherwise, whoever the champion is, I think should face Jinder. And I wouldn't mind seeing the U.S. title on Jinder Mahal. I know that it's going to go back to the whole xenophobic thing because it's the United States Championship and he is Jinder Mahal, and I know that he's gonna get boos and USA chants every single match that he has. But with taking that away from it, the spot of being the U.S. champion, I think that's where he should be.
All right, let's move on a little bit here. So some things that's fun about going to a wrestling show is sometimes someone can win you over that you didn't like beforehand, or you realized how good someone was. I didn't like The Miz, and I didn't like what's his face, Heath Slater a few years ago, and we went to a house show in 2014, and they both won me over. I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are awesome, and that's when I started to really warm back up to The Miz. Was there anybody that did that for you guys, that either you didn't like going in and saw them live and you're like, they surprised you? Baron Corbin would come to my mind as one that I thought you guys were mentioning on the way home about how he was impressive for what we had expected. I'm sure we're all going to walk away saying, yes, AJ Styles is the man. He is the phenomenal one. He is what he is billed as. But is there someone else other than that? I also love Sami Zayn. To me, coming away, that he was someone who impressed me even more, even though he's my guy going into it, and getting to see Shinsuke as well is pretty awesome. But is there someone that won you over that you weren't expecting to? Let's go to Zach first.
I don't know. I feel like everyone performed admirably. I don't know if there's anyone that I saw that I had that drastically changed my opinion. I think it was interesting, not to jump too far ahead, but to see the different aspects of Rusev and Shinsuke in a dark match, to really see them get to do some fun character stuff when both guys are, very well known for their in-ring performances. I did think Baron Corbin held his own pretty well in that 5-man match, which is tricky for anyone with that many moving pieces. I think he looked great. I think he quietly always looks pretty good. He's one of those guys who I don't have any major complaints for him. Maybe not my favorite gimmick, but I think it fits him really well. I think he's doing great. I will say it's always weird. Dolph Ziggler is one of those guys who I loved. I was the typical smart who loved Ziggler, and then eventually you just stop caring because you know nothing's going to happen. And now with them bringing back in the new contract, you just feel like he could coast, but he's not a guy who coasts. He came out and he performed his stuff with AJ. Was great. You forget how good he can be because the gimmick of like acting like he doesn't care and that he's better than it really kind of it translates well. Like you get that feeling of apathy from him sometimes, and I think maybe it's working really well because they can get in the ring and still show you how he can still go with the best of them. So I think I was pleasantly surprised that Dolph Ziggler can still be Dolph Ziggler in the ring when he's on. So that was maybe my takeaway from it.
Baron Corbin performed very well. I don't want to say he won me over, though, because I've always, and I think I've even said it on the show before, Baron Corbin, although I'm not a huge fan of him, whenever he is in tag matches or multi-man matches especially, he always, his style and the way he wrestles fits perfectly in multi-man matches, so he's always going to perform well. And I think I'm kind of in the same boat with you as Ziggler, where I was a huge fan of his and then kind of just didn't care so much anymore. And even with a new contract, I kind of haven't cared. But his performance on Tuesday and seeing him live, although he's still the same Dolph Ziggler, he kind of won me over a little more because just seeing him live and seeing the way AJ Styles is the best, of course, in the WWE right now at least. But Ziggler's pretty damn good too, and seeing those two in the ring together, even though it turned into a multi-man match with the awesome surprise ending, seeing Dolph and AJ together, that was really cool too. But other than that, everyone that I wanted to see and expected to do well did do well. There wasn't really anyone that I wasn't looking forward to seeing, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't feel like anyone necessarily stood out more than anyone else, and that's not a bad thing because I feel the same way that you guys have said. Like, everyone did an amazing job that night. It was a great show all around. But if I'm gonna have to pick someone, I'm going with AJ Styles. It's just seeing him live. He is on a whole nother level, and he really, really is just head and shoulders. It's no question as far as WWE goes. And Andre and I have kind of discussed this. It kind of depends on who you watch between Kenny Omega and AJ Styles, who's your number one. But just thinking about it right now, fresh, AJ Styles, he is the best in the world in my opinion, and I really like how much he's come along on the microphone since he's joined the WWE. In my opinion, he wasn't the best. He wasn't at all bad, but he wasn't the best on the microphone, at least delivering a WWE style promo. But that promo that he delivered on Tuesday night, I was 100% all in behind him, and then to see him perform and have the match that he had with Dolph Ziggler and then continue on in the five-way match, just what a performance by AJ Styles throughout that whole night.
One of my bucket list things that I got to cross off today, Tuesday, was seeing AJ Styles live. I had never seen him live, and it was, I hate to sound weird saying this, but it was really an honor to actually see him live because he's great.
Zach, another thing about this AJ Styles thing is that you really get the feeling that he is the world champion, that he really, he embodies what you would want out of a babyface champion, and you feel like he is the guy, not just because they say he is and he has the belt, but because he is the best wrestler or one of the best two or three in the world right now. And I think that was kind of cool on Tuesday night to get that feeling like we saw the best in the world.
Oh yeah, totally. And I agree with Chandler. His promo skills have really stepped up, and I think that's what really sells it, because he's that guy who, even if he didn't have the promos or the character or all that build, as soon as he gets in that ring, he's going to outperform anyone he's in there with. But the fact that he can back it up with that charisma and the confidence and the way he carries himself as a champion, it really does sell him as the world champion. He exudes that presence and that feeling of being the greatest in the world, and being, as cheesy as it sounds, I mean, it's pro wrestling, so of course it is, but being proud of that fact and being, honored and feeling the privilege that comes with that. He brings a certain level of respect to that belt, which I think some performers, it's not that they don't, but just the way he carries himself and presents himself as the champion, it really sells that. And it really did. He felt like he had that. He came out with the belt and the whole thing, and I mean, he's the most popular dude maybe in WWE right now, and it really is that whole package. It makes it that much more fun to have a compelling champion for people to chase after. So yeah, it was really cool to see him in that role.
Okay, so let's talk about our favorite match from Tuesday night. I think that the main event with the five-way was got to be right up there. The dark match that people didn't get to see on Smackdown, but we will get to see some tomorrow on Fastlane, is going to be Shinsuke and against Rusev, which was a ton of fun, and they totally did some of the antics that you would want to see out of a dark match, of just kind of playing with the crowd, having fun, joking around, but also putting on a good match that was engaging in every way. But I think that the Mixed Match Challenge, and that, like I said, I had yet to see even a second of Mixed Match Challenge on Facebook or anything on the network. That was my first instance of getting to see it. And it was cool because it was the team that I would want to see, of Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss, which is very cool for us because going to see SmackDown, you don't necessarily imagine that you're going to see those two. We knew the night before that was going to be the case, but it's really got to be up between those three matches. Andre, did you have a favorite? I mean, you got to see AJ Styles, but those other two matches were pretty darn good too.
Yeah, that's really tough. The Mixed Match Challenge, the dark match to close the show, I think it's between those two. And the AJ Styles match was great as well. That match kind of, if you count that with the Fatal Five, or the four, what was it, four of them? Five of them? The five of them, the Fatal Five-Way that finished, if that's all one match, that was a great match too, with the way it ended with Sammy. Oh, man, that's tough. That's really tough. I'd have to probably say by a hair, just by a small little sliver, the dark match, simply because we got to see them be a little loose, and I got to hear and sing along with the crowd doing Shinsuke's song, which was another bucket list item that I've always wanted to do. So I think that puts it over the top for me. But yeah, those three matches were great. The mixed match challenge is probably a very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very second place, very close second.
Chandler, were you all in on the kick his butt, Shinsu?
Shinsu, oh gosh. Just more instances of why it's somewhat embarrassing to be a wrestling fan. Yeah, those two matches definitely were up there. Another match that was up there for me was the opening dark match, which was your boys, the New Day versus Shelton Benjamin and Chad Gable, which was also a fantastic match. And also I got to high five Kofi and Big E, and that was super awesome. So if I had to pick one match of the night, it probably would be the dark match, just because it was so much fun. There was so much fan interaction with the crowd. Rusev trolled everyone and teased that Lana would come out, and then she didn't. And Aiden English got on the mic and said that we're stuck with him instead, basically. That was really, really funny. Just the entire match itself, Shinsuke coming out with the cheesehead hat on. It was great. It was fantastic. And we're going to get to see this match at Fastlane. Obviously, it's not going to be as much crowd interaction and entertainment, but it's going to be a good match, and we got to see a little glimpse of that at the dark match on Tuesday.
Zach, let's go to you. What was your top match of the night?
Oh, definitely mixed match challenge. It's a lot of fun. Braun Strowman, like, seeing that guy in person, he's just obviously gigantic, but seeing how fast he moves, like seeing a dude clear from one side of the ring to the other and just throwing Uso around, like it was super fun. And the weird, awkward chemistry between him and Bliss it's so entertaining. And like, I think that's the best part about it is it's just fun entertainment. Like it's just like, you don't have to invest in it. You don't have to like worry about storyline stuff. And those two, Bliss and Braun, playing off each other, like the Team Little Big thing, it's so entertaining. And I've really enjoyed watching them together. It was not even close. That was by far my favorite part of the night.
Yeah, and to that point, the way that Jimmy Uso played off of how he wanted Naomi to just stay in there, like you're good, and some of the stuff he would say in between the match, you can hear him like, that's messed up after, and he went through the table. I mean, there's so many good aspects of Braun Strowman, and the way that Jimmy Uso played off of it as well, I thought was really great. It really is a tough one to call, but we're pretty lucky to get those trio of matches. In between the Mixed Match Challenge and our Dark Match main event, we also got to see 205 Live. I think we all have some different ideas of what we want to see happen with 205 Live. Zach, you would like to see them actually do away with 205 Live as a show and get more of these guys incorporated on one of or both of the main rosters, or where do you stand on this?
Well, I think that's the tricky part. It's awesome that they have the showcase, but being there live, SmackDown is, it started at 6:45. There's the dark match. Then you go live at 7. There's a 2-hour show. Then there was, 20, 30 minutes of mixed match challenge. Then there was a little downtime while they prep the ring, more video packages. And then finally 205 Live starts. And at that point, half the people in the arena had left. Mark Andrews came out to not booze, not any, it was just like pure apathy and like no reaction. And you felt terrible. And, they put on great matches, but if you're expecting people to wait around after the show they came to pay for, like they paid to come see, and then another thing, and then sitting through all the video packages and everything that comes with being at a live show as compared to watching it on TV, to expect them to have the same enthusiasm for matches that they maybe aren't following otherwise, like I can't imagine that even the majority of the people who are there seeing SmackDown Live are necessarily sticking around on the network on Tuesday nights to watch 205 Live. So if they're not, engaged in the storylines, if they don't know who these wrestlers are, it's hard for them to get the same reactions that your main roster guys would get. I don't know if putting on the main roster is the best way to do it, but I also don't think at this point there's enough interest to do a full touring 205 Live show where you do all your tapings there. We talked about maybe doing dark match style and backlogging matches until you've got the episodes, or doing like an NXT thing where you do a month worth of tapings at a time. I don't know what the best solution is, but I don't think it's waiting around to the end of the show and having a half-empty arena of largely disinterested people watching these matches for these very talented performers who deserve a place of I don't know, distinction or at least respect or prominence. It's a tough thing. There's so much going on in WWE right now that it's hard to find a spot for everyone, frankly, to get the attention that maybe they deserve.
Chandler, where do you stand on this? How do you fix 205 Live in the Cruiserweight division?
I agree with a lot. With a lot of what Zach just said. I think that it's a hard call to switch it if you're going to switch it from its own show to sharing time with either Raw or SmackDown. That's a hard call. If you're going to keep it its own show, which I feel like that is the best way to showcase it, because as Zach said as well, they deserve to be showcased. They deserve to have their own spotlight. I think that putting it on before SmackDown airs is gonna prevent what happened, which is half the arena leaving, and it'll get people ready to go for SmackDown. I think that SmackDown will still hold the same amount of people. You still have the dark match at the end of the night to try to keep people there. The episode of SmackDown itself will still be fine. And I mean, they did it back in the day. Not too long ago, they had either Superstars or Main Event before Raw or SmackDown, and those were recorded and then aired later on, either on WWE.com or once the network came out, they would just air it later there. So I don't see why you can't do that. Obviously, they would have to air it live if they want to keep the name 205 Live, but I don't see a problem with that, putting it on before SmackDown airs, just to ensure that doesn't happen, where you have a lesser-known person like a Mark Andrews come out to nothing because half of the people that were in the arena are already gone.
Well, I mean, here's why I think they can keep the 205 Live name, because Monday Night Raw is not actually uncooked. But Andre?
Oh my goodness. You just threw me off my whole train of thought here. I agree with Chandler. I think it should be before SmackDown Live. I think it would be best suited to bump up SmackDown Live to an hour later. They have to renegotiate contracts, something coming up sooner, something like that. Because I know that Fox is
the TV contracts are going to be up not that long from now. They're in talks with Facebook, which is why the Mixed Match Challenge was maybe a way to find out how they can make that work. And Fox is also a big one, where Fox would get SmackDown and they would would get Raw, and then SmackDown would go on FS1 on Tuesday nights. And because of the money that they're going to get from this, they might actually have the chance to slim down to 2 hours, because they can still get more money than they were getting in revenue from the TV contracts and not have to do the 3 hours. In which case they could do from 7 to 8, could be 205 Live on the network. You still get your 3 hours and everything, and then shrink Raw down to 2 hours on Fox on Monday nights.
That would make the most sense then, because they're already a Raw branded. The Cruiserweights are already technically on Raw, even though they have their own show, which is, I've never understood that, but that would make the most sense. I actually think that if they were to cut down, I guess they could cut down to 2 hours. I just don't see that happening at this point, just because of how big the roster is. You'd lose a lot of time, but then again, I don't know. I'll be curious to see what happens if they do go that route. But if they don't, and assuming they keep it on TV, whether it be Fox or USA or what have you, I think the idea of bumping up SmackDown 1 hour, because SmackDown's only 2 hours, so it's going to end the same time Raw would end if it started an hour later than it usually does. And then that first hour can be the 205 Live, and that can still be live on the network, and then you go to USA or Fox for SmackDown.
And think about this. We're all pretty big wrestling fans. We all loved the Cruiserweight Classic. We got to see 3 Cruiserweight matches, 2 of which are a tournament to get into the semifinals for a match at WrestleMania to be crowned the new the new cruiserweight champion, which we haven't had in a couple months now. So it really was a big deal. And even at the same time, I told you about our love of it. It was still hard to really give in as a fan as much as we wanted to, because we had just sat through 2+ hours of SmackDown. And sure, we were able to kind of get recharged for that main event, because based on the names, those are guys that we absolutely love, and the way the entertainment value for that main event was just great. But it was really hard to, even as our fans with a half-empty building, to kind of get up for those cruiserweight matches. And they were very important matches with 4 guys that are great wrestlers. And in terms of bell-to-bell in-ring competition, those 2 tournament matches were probably the 2 best matches, if you're just not including storyline and all these other things, but 2 best actual matches in the ring of the night. And it was still hard for us to really give into it in any way. So something has to be changed with this.
Yep, and I don't see any better way to do it than switching it to beforehand instead of having it at the end of either Raw or SmackDown, whichever Monday or Tuesday night, whichever one you want to pick.
But at the same time, though, if they continue to put on a good product, eventually, hopefully, you would think, even if they don't change anything, you'd think that it would slowly bring enough fans in to where, if it's good enough and compelling enough, that people are going to tune in. But hopefully it gets there.
Okay, Zach, let me ask you this. Is there a way to regain your interest in watching 205 Live without changing too much about the time slot, when it's on? Is there other things that you want to change that would get you interested, keeping the show where it's at in its current form?
Well, I think the other interesting thing is, there's not 205 isn't hurting for viewership on a network. It's one of the most consistently highly rated shows. I think where it suffers is in the live attendance thing, which I think, the crowd has an impact on the match in the ring. So that's kind of interesting. I think, another part of it, frankly, is just, it's still that ongoing thing, not to sound like the broken record that is the internet fans, but, 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, an hour of NXT, pay-per-views every third day or whatever it is now. There's so much content right now that another hour of matches that maybe prior to at least this tournament being announced didn't have the same storyline pushing the in-ring action, so there's not as much of a reason to tune in. It's a lot to ask of fans, and there's only so many hours in a day, and I can only watch as much as I love it. There's only so much tolerance I have for pro wrestling in any given amount of time. So maybe it's the way they prioritize it. It's not that I'm completely disinterested. It's just that if I've got a limited amount of time each week to watch wrestling, I'm going to watch the more main roster stuff, the more central and focused stuff between Raw and SmackDown, and even then, I'm probably going to be picking and choosing matches rather than sitting down and watching both programs. So, I think if they can find a way to market it to keep the live audience engaged, I think that's what they really need to do. But as a show on the network, it seems to be doing just fine. So it's a very interesting little project they've got going on right now.
Yeah, and I think things will improve. It's only been a few weeks since Triple H has taken over as the head of 205 Live. We've gotten away from some of the silly character gimmicks, some of which were actually a lot of fun. But you can really, if you really look at the character arc of Drew Gulak, you can look through him mostly to see the difference of Vince being involved or not. And I even loved the Drew Gulak's, him with the Zoe train, and the PowerPoints were really great. But I think this is more what he's into. But I just getting away from some of the more character-based stuff and putting it back into being a better or the best in-ring product that WWE has to offer as we go on. But we got a few minutes left in the show. I want to get to some of the stuff going on tomorrow night in Fastlane. Chandler's going to read down the card for us.
Yep, we're going to have Becky Lynch and Naomi versus Natalya and Carmella. Next, we're going to have a match with Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsu. She's in my head, guys. Shinsuke Nakamura versus Rusev. Next, we'll have the United States Championship on the line with Bobby Roode defending against Randy Orton. Then we'll also have the SmackDown Women's Championship defended by Charlotte Flair versus Ruby Riott. Next, we'll have the SmackDown Tag Team Championships with the Usos defending against the New Day. And AJ Styles will defend the WWE Championship against John Cena, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Baron Corbin, and Dolph Ziggler in a six-pack challenge.
We talked a lot about Shinsuke and Rusev. I think a lot of the things that we saw on Tuesday night will maybe even be incorporated in tomorrow night's match. Very excited for this. These are two of the show's favorites, and I imagine many others as well. The SmackDown Tag Team Championships, that's going to be pretty great too. The Usos and New Day, you don't really need too much build. These names are fine on their own, and what we've seen the last 8 months from these guys in one of the best tag team rivalries maybe of this decade we talked about before. So these guys are absolutely on fire. Can't wait to see what they have in store. I'd almost like to see this be a 2 out of 3 falls match or something just to extend it even more, because the card is not super stacked. But let's talk about the main event. This would be a huge letdown if AJ Styles doesn't win this, right?
Absolutely. Styles is going to win. I would be shocked if they did all this with Shinsuke to win the Rumble and everything and not have it be AJ versus Shinsuke one-on-one. If they try to find a way to make it a triple threat match, would be very disappointing, even though it would be a great match. AJ, Shinsuke, whoever the third man would be. But it has to be AJ.
Chandler, we've talked about it since last June and even before that with Wrestle Kingdom 10, I believe it was. AJ Styles against Shinsuke Nakamura. We're finally set up to get that match at WrestleMania. WWE can't drop the ball here, right? This is what we have to get at WrestleMania, especially if they're going to give us Lesnar and Reigns, which is the Chronicle of a Death foretold.
That was the main point that I wanted to bring up, not only because of the history between AJ and Shinsuke and the Wrestle Kingdom and everything that comes with that, but more so this year because we're going to get Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns for the Universal title, and because we know Roman Reigns is going to win the Universal title, they have to give us AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura. That's the only way that's going to make it right. It's kind of it's going to be a yin and yang kind of situation. Like they have to do that.
Zach, in many ways, this is the internet smarks, or even our show, the Schmozcast's WrestleMania main event. WWE can't drop the ball on this one, right?
Yeah, there's no way. And I think by making the six-pack challenge, which is maybe my least favorite name for a match ever, I think they make it a little easier to distract from the fact that the title is actually on the line, because there's so many moving pieces, and they've really played as last minute and as thrown together as it feels, the idea of John Cena trying to find a way into WrestleMania. Maybe that's the storyline that overshadows the fact that there's no way that AJ loses the belt. And it's traditional booking. It's a throwaway pay-per-view 3-4 weeks before WrestleMania. Like, no one's expecting title changes with the exception of maybe the tag belts, maybe the U.S. title. I don't know. I don't think anything major is going to happen there. I'm not as doom and gloom about the whole Roman Reigns situation. I think it's good. I think it's great. I think it's where it needs to go. It's the culmination where it needs to be. But I totally agree that the AJ Shinsuke match that's the main event for everyone out there who's really into the in-ring aspect of things and the high caliber performance that those two are capable of. So it would be a total swerve, bro, if they didn't let that match happen at Mania.
It's funny that you mentioned the six-pack challenge match for a name, especially with guys like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Baron Corbin, because there's not a six-pack between those three. Andre, you have a prediction for this one.
I don't know if I can top that. I have two predictions. I think we're going to see two people show up after two championship matches. I could be wrong, but I think we're going to see Asuka show up after Charlotte wins, and then we're going to see The Undertaker show up after John Cena loses. Either that or it's going to be on Raw or SmackDown the night after, but I think we're going to see those two people show up.
All right, so
Jinder.
And even though it is an in-between pay-per-view, I was wrong about Elimination Chamber, and maybe because I had low expectations that it kind of exceeded those. So hopefully this is where we're at. And as Zach said, we have too many pay-per-views right now. The good thing is after WrestleMania, we're going to be back down to one pay-per-view a month, which is the way it ought to be. Getting rid of things like Battleground and Great Balls of Fire. We're kind of knocking down to once a month, extended time for WrestleMania. I think that really is the way to go, and we're finally going to get back to that. And dual-branded pay-per-views, so I think more important matches will be at pay-per-views, especially that there will be less of them. That about does it for our show. Zach, before we get you off, you want to tell us a little bit, our fans, about where they can find you and your art on social media?
Oh, sure. I've got a website, ZachWagnerArt.com. It needs to be updated a little bit. I'm a little behind on that. Otherwise, more recent stuff is at ZWagner422 at Instagram. Kind of my online sketchbook, so just my goofy doodles and stuff.
Awesome. And Chandler, we have all sorts of cool places they can find us as well.
Yes, absolutely. You can check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. What am I missing? Is that it? I think so. Twitter. Yes, Twitter.
Hell yeah.
Find us all on all those platforms at the Schmozcast.
All right, folks, that does it for our show. Zach Wagner, thank you so much for being with us. We look forward to having you again in the future.
Excellent. Sounds good.
All right, that does it for the show. Catch us next week, and stay tuned. Check out our YouTube pages as well, because we're going to start adding up the video shows. We're going to have more of those going on, and a possible time change for the Schmozcast. So pay attention to those social media pages. We'll catch you catching us next week.